it's me, and today I'm here with my January wrap-up. I have 11 books to talk to you about today, so let's get this moving. Okay, so I want to talk about stats. If you haven't watched my TBR videos, basically I set myself 5 challenges every month that I want to complete, and today I'm going to talk to you about how many books I hit for each challenge. I don't know. So yeah, the first challenge is to read a book out of my comfort zone, and I only read one book towards that, and that's the one in my TBR. For reading a sequel, I read 4 books. For a new book, I read 2 books. And then for a TBR vet, I also have 2 books, and I have 1 book for my TBR chart. And then for normal stats, like I said, I read a total of 11 books, and 5 of those I already owned. The rest, library books, galleys, whatever. I give 1 2-star, 3 3-stars, 5 4-stars, and 2 5-stars. I have read 7 books by female authors, 3 books by male authors, and 1 other. So in this case it means a non-binary author, but it could also be like a mix or whatever. Then for age range, I read 1 middle grade book, 6 YA books, and 4 adult books. And for genre, I read 1 science fiction, 1 contemporary, 6 fantasies, 2 non-fictions, and 1 dystopian. And those are my stats for the month. So let's immediately jump in to the books that I actually read this month. The first one of those is The Burning Shadow by Jennifer L Armentrout. This is the sequel to The Darkest Star, the second book in the Origin series, which is a spin-off series to the Lux series by Jennifer L Armentrout. The Lux series is about a girl named Katie who ends up moving to like a small town and moving in next door to aliens. Whoever thought? And basically, just like every YA sci-fi fantasy series, it ends with like a battle, and this series takes place like 3 years after that. I gave this book 4 stars. The first book was 5 stars. It was one of my favorite books of last year, and I still won't shut up about it. But this one was a little bit disappointing to me. Like, it still had all elements I loved, but there was one element in the first book that annoyed me a little bit, but like not enough to make me Darker Star. But then in this book it got worse, and it did bother me enough. That's the main character. She was pretty annoying in my opinion. And I had the same thing with Katie in the Lux series, so I guess that's just like a thing Jennifer L Armentrout is doing. But main character was just so annoying. I was so angry at her at so many other points. So that really bothered me, but for the rest I really enjoyed this. This series is much more action-packed than the Lux series, so if you were missing that in the Lux series, I highly recommend this. But for the rest, it's kind of the same. So yeah, I love this. Luke is like my favorite character in the entire world. I love him so much. Like, this series would be like top-notch if it was told in Luke's perspective, because he's so amazing. Next book I read was a galley from Night Galley, and that's Only Mostly Devastated by Sophie Gonzales. This book is about a boy whose aunt has cancer, so he and his family like spent the summer with his aunt away like a lake, so they can take care of like her kids and stuff while she goes through treatment and can rest and whatever. And then the hope was that by the end of the summer she would do much better and they could go home, but turns out that didn't happen, and they ended up having to move to this small town to permanently help out his aunt. But at this, like during the summer, he kind of gets in a romance with this guy who isn't out yet, and yeah, they basically just have like a summer fling, so to say. After kind of the summer, this guy ends up ghosting our main character, so you just like, I don't care, I'm over it, I'm at this new place, I'll make new friends. Turns out this guy is also at this school that he now is going to because he moved. It's kind of Greece inspired, so yeah, you can imagine stuff going on. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars, not because it was bad or anything, but because it just was basic, I feel like this book didn't really do anything special. It just was a typical love story, but then just gay, and I was just you're gonna have to do a little bit more, you know? The next book I read was Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. I reread Carry On in December so I could read this book. Carry On is about Simon Snow. I almost pointed out Baz, but it's about Simon Snow, who is a chosen one character but doesn't really know how to do magic. And that's kind of the thing. He's very bad at doing magic, but somehow he's the chosen one. And he's never wanted to be the chosen one because, like I said, he doesn't really know how to do anything. But kind of Carry On is supposed to be like the last book in like a typical YA series where the chosen one has to defeat like the big evil. And we're following Simon Snow in his last year at this school for wizards, and he has a roommate named Baz, and they hate each other throughout the entire time of school. They hated each other. But then this last year, for the first like month or so, Baz doesn't show up, and Simon is worried the heck out. He is just like, he can't relax because he's just so worried about where Baz is. So it's a love story, like friends, enemies to lovers love story, but also just a very fun spoof on the chosen one trope. And it's fun, it's happy, it's great. This book, however, it's not fun, happy, anything. This book deals with what happens after the happily ever after. That's what this book is about. And yeah, I give this 4 out of 5 stars. It was a little bit disappointing to me because I just feel like because I feel like this book started off very well, like the discussion around like kind of more like the not really PTSD but kind of depression that Simon is going through, and how his boyfriend and his best friend are dealing with it, and how he's dealing with it. I thought it started off very interesting, but then like the actual plot started kicking in, and it just seemed like they kind of forgot about that storyline. It just, I don't know, it just felt the switch was just very heavily done. It was just, oh my god, Simon is so depressed and his stresses is out, and all of a sudden it's like, ah! So, I don't know, that bothered me a little bit. It did eventually come back around towards the ending, and this ended on a huge cliffhanger, so I'm excited about getting the 3rd book, because, oh my god. It's still a fun road trip book. I think we explored the more American side of this world, and I think that's interesting because it works very different from the UK wizard world kind of thing that we saw in book 1. So I do think this took the story in an interesting direction. I just kind of give this a full 5 stars because the like tone shift kind of. The next book I read is The Baptism of Fire by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is the 3rd book in our series. Yeah, it's back at the library, so I have nothing to show you. I'll pop up a picture here. And yeah, I've had a bit of a struggle with this series. I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars because I do think this was, for me, the switching point. Because so far, I've had a very hard time following along with the books because they would just be like perspective switches without really any explanation of who this person is, where they are, what time we are in, and like how far removed we are from previous perspective, and at what place we are, what the significance of this person is, why are we doing this. I just felt very disoriented throughout the first 2 books, and this book I didn't really have it anymore. I was very engaged throughout the entire story, and I thought it was told interestingly, but I just had problems with some parts where I just was zoning off because the author went on like a tangent that wasn't really needed and was a bit boring. The next book I read is Aru Shah at the End of Time by Roshani Chokshi. I'm so sorry to pronounce that wrong. But this book is about Aru Shah, whose mother has this like museum for, let me see if I can say this correctly. No, it doesn't say on the back. So it has she has like a museum for like Indian mythology, Hindu mythology, I'm not entirely sure. But in this museum there's a lamp, And basically, Aru Shah has been told her entire life, like, don't touch this lamp, like, don't light this lamp because it will, like, start basically destruction. And then one day, people from her school come to the museum and they dare Aru Shah to light this lamp and to prove that she's not lying about the fact that this lamp is cursed. And she does it because she wants to be popular, which she isn't at the moment, and everything freezes. And basically, she gets thrown into this adventure. Turns out she's one of the Pandava brothers, and has to basically save the universe. I give this book 4 out of 5 stars. In the beginning, I wasn't really too sure about this book because Aru Shah is very, very annoying of a character. Like, just very much the middle grader you don't want to be around because you're really annoying, and she's one of those. And I don't know, I was just having trouble with it, and the plot wasn't really that exciting for me to really like see over it. But then towards like the second half, so much changed and so much switched, and the story got so interesting, and yeah. Ended up having a very fun time reading this. I still think Aru Shah is very annoying. She didn't really go through that much growth throughout this book, but I have a feeling with the way this book left off that she's gonna change a lot throughout the series. The next book that I read is Warriors, Witches, Women by Kate Hodges, who's not a galley from that galley, and this is basically a collection of just like little essays about different women throughout mythology and how the meaning of them was changed throughout history. And yeah, I didn't like this. Give this 2 out of 5 stars. Basically, I requested this because it sounded really interesting. I'm really interested in mythology, and I thought like, oh, this could be fun because it explains not only their origins but also how they developed throughout history and what was like based on them. But I feel like first of all, the writing wasn't really that interesting. Like, it didn't really grab me. It just was matter of factly, like, I don't know. Also, I feel like the author tried to shoe in her own opinion, but like present it as facts, and it was often very far-fetched because she didn't really argument her opinion, and it just, I don't know. It felt forced. The next book I read is The Tower of the Swallow by Andrzej Sapkowski, which is the 4th book in the Witcher series. And this one I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I was right that the series took a turn. I was right to be excited because I really enjoyed this book. Like, I still think this author often just like rambles on about things that don't really matter, but I thought this was so much fun. It took the story in such an interesting direction. It was told in a very interesting way, and it switched perspectives a lot, but in a way that I could easily follow, and took the story in an interesting direction. And yeah, I love these. I love this. It's not really love this because I self-published it. It's 4 out of 5 stars, but I'm glad I pushed through those first 3 books to get to this one because this was great. And so far, I'm only like a quarter of the way through the last book, and I'm also really liking that one. So yeah, if you're having trouble with the first couple of books in the Witcher series, push through. It's worth it. Next up, I read another galley from that galley, and that's The Will and the Wilds by Charlie N Holmberg. This book is a bit difficult to explain, but basically, in this world, you have humans and demon-like creatures. I forgot the actual name of the creatures, I'm sorry. But they live in kind of this different dimension, and our main character, her grandmother was kind of like an expert on these demons and like has like a notebook full of like notes on these creatures and the different kinds of creatures and whatever. And she has made it her mission to continue that notebook and maybe one day get it published because she really wants to be like taken seriously for research. And her father is actually one of the few people that crossed over into that other dimension, and since then he's kind of not really been himself. And one day their house gets attacked by goblins, I believe. So because she can't protect herself and her father can't protect really them, she ends up summoning one of like the demon-like creatures and making a deal with him that he has to protect them and kill the goblins, and then he can go back home. He gets like a payment for it. Because of this deal, they made like a blood pact kind of deal. They are attached to each other, and one of the goblins actually ends up striking this guy, which makes him be stuck to our dimension, like the regular world. Yeah, he's stuck in our dimension basically, and he needs to go back to his dimension to like survive. So basically, because he and this girl are attached, this girl also has to help him like get out of this attachment to the dimension, because otherwise she'll die as well. So it's complicated. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I don't know, again, this book felt a bit basic. And I didn't really care for... No, it's not really basic. That was one. I just didn't really care for what was going on. Like, it's a very interesting world. And it was, like, unlike any I've read before. But I just feel like there's a romance element in it that was very predictable and very basic. Wasn't really anything unique done to it. The characters, they didn't really... Well, the demon type thing did go through development, but that was, like, the development that, again, was very basic. We're moving on to my first 5-star of the year, which was my out of my comfort zone book, so yay me for pushing myself, but also had an expectation I was gonna love it. But like, anyway, it's DNA by Lieven Scheire. Lieven Scheire is a Flemish scientific comedian, which is the best way to explain him, and he recently did like a comedy show all about DNA, and this is kind of a more extended version about that was published in book form, so everybody could enjoy it. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, first 5-star of the year. Loved it. It's about DNA. I hate everything. Like in school, I hated daily scientific. I hated chemistry. I hated physics. I hated biology. I couldn't do it. I was decent in chemistry, but like I just didn't like it, and therefore I didn't really put that much effort in it so that I would do good at it. But one thing I absolutely loved was like chapter about genetics. I just thought it was so interesting, and I was also so good at it. That was one of the only tests I didn't fail for biology, so yay me. Because this guy is one of my favorite Flemish, like when he's on TV, I really like watching him. And because it's a topic I'm very interested in, I thought I would pick up the book, and it didn't disappoint because this was really interesting. I think what this book did well is that it presents you all of the information in a non-biased way, and then gives you a question that's one of like the big questions that we're gonna ask ourselves the more genetics goes forward, and just gives you the information that's out there already about that topic, and shows you the pros and cons of this subject, and then asks you your opinion. You don't have a place to write it, like you can think it, and I think that's very interesting. I think that's a great way to write a book like this, because it makes you like, it requires you to think about these topics. You're just not like reading about them and sure you're informed, but actually just encourages you to think about what you just read and what's going on in the world, and I think that's fantastic. Told in a very comprehensible way, so even if you knew nothing about genetics, I think you leave this book still comprehending everything in it. And I think that's what's done well. Is like there's a lot of analogies, like the bigger, harder to get concept, he makes analogies to very understandable things, which makes you understand the bigger concept even better, and it's great. And if you speak Dutch, I highly recommend you go pick up this book. The next book I read is Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. I'm so sorry to pronounce that one, but I looked up her name so many times and I still don't really get it. But this is a book set in like this kind of fantasy world where there used to be monsters and they've all been taken care of, and they're all in prison or dead. It's presumed, especially in this town where our main character lives, it's presumed that no monsters are alive. Like no monsters are free anymore. Like they're all taken care of. So we follow our main character, who is named Jam, and she's trans, which I want to add. It's not a big deal in the thing, but I wanted to add. So if you're looking for a trans book, this is one. And her mother's like a painter, and our main character accidentally makes one of the paintings come to life, which there's a whole thing about them, but I wouldn't talk about that because spoilers. And the creature from the painting ends up being Pet's, and Pet basically claims that he's there to haunt a monster, and the only clue Pet has is Redemption's house. Now Redemption is my main character's best friend, so she freaks out and of course wants to help out Pet to get rid of this monster, even though when she tells her parents, the parents are like, oh, you must have like come in at the wrong time, or like something must make a mistake because there's no monsters anymore. And this was so fucking good. I give this 5 out of 5 stars. Oh my god. Looked up many interviews by the author because even though like I had my own thoughts about the book, I really wanted to know what they thought about it themselves and what they had to say about it, because I just think it's so interesting. And basically it's just a discussion on monsters and how we perceive monsters to be. It's so hard to talk about this book without spoiling anything, but this is so great. And also our main character is trans, she's selectively mute, and it's all dealt with so casually, and it's just like a part of the story instead of the story, and I really like that, and just highly recommend you pick this up because it's so good. We've already arrived at the last book of today, which my back is very grateful for because it is hurting. And last book of today is Internment by Samira Ahmed. This book takes place in a near-futuristic world, I would say. Like, it very much resembles our world, but it has to be like a little bit in the future because stuff like the wall around Mexico is already there and stuff. So it's very near-futuristic, basically. And I think 2 years before the start of this book, Muslims have officially been seen as a threat to society in America, and they're taking away like a bunch of the rights, and every Muslim has to be registered and stuff like that. And then one day, randomly in the middle of the night, our main character and her parents get taken away by government and are brought, like, are not really told where to go, and they're just told like bring a small bag, you have 10 minutes to pack it, and they are basically brought to an internment camp with a bunch of other Muslims, and it's mostly about them trying to get out of that internment camp because it's not okay. Again, I give this book 4 out of 5 stars. I think this book started off a little bit slow, and I didn't really know what to think about it because there wasn't really that much happening. But then, like, the second half was so jam-packed with things, and a lot happened, and again, a lot of discussion around things happened. It's also just like kind of love triangle thing in here, which has bothered me and I didn't really like it. It's not really a love triangle, but I feel like it was a bit set up that way, and I don't know, bothered me a little bit. So that's why it's 4 stars. But for the rest, I think this is a really important book and deals with a lot of important topics, and it was very gripping. I couldn't put it down once I get to like the second half. And yeah, oh god, I just pushed over all my books, I'm so sorry. Those are all of the books I read in the month of January. If you read any of these books, let me know in the comments section below what you thought of them, as well as what are some of the books you read in the month of January. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Good. Here I am again, the same old situation. Why does the God thing have to be so complicated?